A comment yesterday by the new traditional Prime Minister to the amaZulu nation, Thulasizwe Bhuthelezi, that King Misuzulu kaZwelithini believes the Ingonyama Trust, which administers thousands of acres of land across KwaZulu-Natal, believes that the amaKhosi, rather than government, should be more involved in administering it. At the moment, the trustee of the Ingonyama Trust is the king himself. There's a board, and as I understand it, a role for the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. The Ingonyama Trust, as you know, is itself controversial, created through one of the last laws passed by the Apartheid Parliament just before the elections in 1994. Professor Musa Xulu is a political heritage analyst. Professor, good afternoon to you, and thanks very much indeed for your time. Does government really play a big role in the Ingonyama Trust at the moment? I mean, in the way that it's managed, is the Department of Land Affairs really playing a big role?
Well, good afternoon, Stephen. The government is playing a role simply because no land administration is a government competency, national government competency. And even though the land under Ingonyama Trust is legislated, that legislation rests with the National Department of Agriculture and Land Affairs. And therefore, there cannot be an exception here. You must remember that when the late King Misuzulu pursued the issue of Ingonyama Trust, as you rightly said, it was on the eve of democratic dispensation in 1994. He wanted this land to be held in trust, communities mainly, who are living in it. But the rest of the other homelands, they returned the land to central government. And if you remove this legislation, for example, now, what will have to happen within the law is that the land under Ingonyama Trust currently we have to return to the National Department of Land Affairs.
And the amaKhosi, I mean, do they play much of a role? I would imagine it's the people on the board that really play a big role in this. That the power probably rests with them.
Well, amaKhosi are playing a role, for example, in relation to human settlements and in relation to the provision of basic services, but they don't have resources. The board itself plays a role as a board, like all other boards, and then there's an administration which I think has got some more power. But what it means, and I don't know where this thing came from, because it could amount to the undoing of the legacy of Prince Buthelezi. You must remember that to the last of his days, he was fighting for the status quo of Ingonyama Trust to be maintained. Now, a suggestion that it should be shaken now, which of course within the law is unsustainable, could be problematic, Stephen, in terms of how South Africa has evolved, in terms of governance, there's a government in place, in terms of all the systems. It just is not doable.
So, I mean, this is one of the things. Someone could say, we want to do X, Y, Z with the Ingonyama Trust, but it opens the door to a much bigger conversation where the rest of the nation may actually say, we don't want to do X, Y, Z, we want to do A, B, C. And in the end, the people who are on the board, the trustee himself, might find themselves with less power over the trust than they have now. I mean, isn't this the risk of opening the door to any conversation?
Well, it's not necessary. You know, the reason why this is being managed from a national government is because the Ingonyama Trust land is actually part of National Land Reform Program. It's a model. And I think that at the moment, both the minister and the MPs have been discussing if it could be possible for this model to be emulated in other provinces as well. I remember the chairperson of the portfolio committee, Chief Mandela, was very vocal that it should not be only in amaZulu, but it should be looked at how it can be emulated and replicated in other provinces, in other kingdoms as well. And so people are looking at it as a possible model to solve rural land rights in a way limited as it is. And then you have a situation where with all what they have, the Zulus then say, no, we want to do some informal kind of stuff that could open, as you rightly say, all sorts of other possibilities that the little that we have, we then lose. And other people have been looking at the Zulu Kingdom, the Ingonyama Land Trust, as a possible model for other provinces will start saying maybe we are right where we are.
Professor, I was interested and curious in the timing of this statement. Now, there's a lot going on around the kingdom of the amaZulu, of course, at the moment. The Prime Minister is brand new, announced just a few weeks ago. But there's also an election coming up. Has the election got something to do with the timing of this statement by the King through his Prime Minister?
Yeah, it's a repetition of what happened in 1993. You must remember the new Prime Minister is a very high-ranking leader of the IFP. And where people can say all sorts of things, he's got political interests. People say maybe KZN could be available. I doubt that the ANC is intent in as far as that is concerned. But what happened yesterday was a repetition of what happened in 1993 and 94 in what was called Ingonyama, the demands of His Majesty the King Misuzulu, who wanted to, the demands were projected by the late Prince Buthelezi as Zulus wanting to move away from South Africa and be a country on their own. And there's a lot of violence that went with that throughout the province. And you must also remember there was violence that happened at Shell House. Then headquarters of the ANC, some killings happened there just before the election. So what I'm saying is that it's a dangerous call in a situation where the Prime Minister is a leader of a political party. And then yesterday he was saying that they have a long list of things, events that they want. And people are beginning to say maybe it's just a repetition of those demands of 1993, 1994, in the period leading to the democratic elections, where some Zulus were resisting getting into the election in 1994.
I mean, is this an indication of what might be the role that the traditional Prime Minister is going to play? We've got several months until an election. We don't know when it'll be yet. We might find out on Thursday night, of course. But does it suggest that, in a way, he's kind of going to play the role of Prime Minister, but kind of also involved in the IFP? And as you make the point, history repeats itself. It's exactly what Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi did.
Well, it's going to be repeated. What's going to happen is that you have a lot of events, a lot of community meetings and gatherings being called in the name of the King, His Majesty. But who will address those meetings will be the Prime Minister and certain others. And the message it would be similar to the message of 1993, that Zulus are fed up with South Africa and Zulus and this and that. It's called the politics of Zuluness. In the past, it produced violence. If it is repeated now, it could produce even more violence in a very good decline. It was an unfortunate fall yesterday.
Professor, thank you. Professor Musa Xulu is a political heritage analyst. Do appreciate the time. More important conversations, of course, to come around those issues.